Welcome to LexTalks, Legal Topics Simplified, where we tried to make the law a little bit easier to understand. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into online dispute resolution, ODR for short. Now you're probably dealing with a lot of the complexities of Indian law, and you're looking for a clear and engaging way to kind of understand it all. So that's what we're going to try to do today, unpack all this research with the help of our expert, who's fantastic at connecting the dots and really kind of revealing what's important, especially in the context of Indian law.
Yeah, and it's really exciting to see how these traditional dispute resolution methods are evolving to meet the challenges and opportunities of the digital age, particularly as India's digital presence is growing so rapidly.
Yeah, and one of the first things that really stood out to me in all this research was this idea that ODR can kind of transcend geographical boundaries. There was one study that looked at a bunch of different ODR institutions, and none of them limited their services geographically, except for one in the USA. And that was only because of its historical ties with local organizations. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that is a great observation, and it raises a really crucial point about ODR's potential to provide wider access to justice, especially in a globalized world. But we also have to think about how to effectively navigate the complexities of different legal systems and cultural norms when disputes cross borders.
Right, and so ODR is global,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not just about taking traditional ADR, like mediation or arbitration,
Yeah.
and just put it online.
ODR leverages technology to potentially streamline the entire process of resolving disputes, particularly commercial transactions. Technology is that tool that makes it more efficient than traditional methods.
Yeah, and the research actually refers to technology as a fourth party in ODR, impacting communication and even influencing how outcomes are reached. Can you talk a little more about that?
Absolutely. Think of it this way. Technology provides the platform, the tools, and the rules of engagement. It shapes how parties interact, how information is exchanged, and how decisions are made. So in a sense, it's like having another player at the table, kind of influencing the dynamics of the whole process.
Okay, so let's unpack the different types of ODR. There's a whole range of options here, each with its own unique approach.
Yeah, I like to think of it as a toolbox, each tool designed for a specific purpose.
Okay, so first we have automated negotiation, which I kind of imagine as like a digital silent auction, where parties submit bids without seeing each other's offers. And if the bids are close, the system just kind of spits out a resolution.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And this method works particularly well for clear-cut monetary disputes, like insurance claims, where the primary focus is reaching a financial settlement. What's interesting is that some systems actually allow you to add non-monetary conditions, which kind of adds a layer of complexity to it.
So it's not just about the money. Next, we have assisted negotiation, which is imagine a virtual mediator, just subtly kind of nudging the conversation along, helping the parties to find some common ground.
Yeah. You can think of platforms like SquareTrade, which is widely used for resolving disputes on eBay. They use software to guide communication and promote a resolution. And while it's voluntary, SquareTrade's success really shows how software can enhance those traditional mediation principles, even in a digital space.
Right, then there's online mediation.
Yeah.
Which is essentially mediation, but just in the digital realm.
Right. But this raises a really important question. How do we replicate the subtleties of face-to-face interactions, which are so critical in traditional mediation? How do we do that in an online setting? The technology needs to be sophisticated enough to support those nuances of communication.
And that's where things get really interesting, because the research indicates that only one online mediation provider actually uses established offline mediation standards. So what does that mean for the quality and consistency of these online mediations?
That's a valid concern. It highlights the need for the industry to really develop and adhere to consistent standards and ethical guidelines, because without them, the quality and effectiveness of online mediation could vary drastically.
Yeah, then we have online arbitration,
Yeah.
which is like you're stepping into a virtual courtroom.
Exactly. Evidence is presented, arguments are made, and a neutral third party renders a decision. It's crucial to remember that just like traditional arbitration awards, these online judgments are legally binding. They carry the same weight as a court order.
Right, and here's something that struck me. While arbitration is really popular for international disputes offline, there's surprisingly very little data available about online arbitration cases. What are your thoughts on that?
That's an insightful observation. And it suggests that while online arbitration has the potential to be effective, we need more research to understand how it's being used and how its outcomes are enforced, especially in a diverse legal landscape like India.
Right. We need data to back up its effectiveness.
Absolutely.
So shifting gears a bit, the research also mentions ICANN's UDRP, which is a specialized ODR, specifically for domain name disputes.
Yes, ICANN. The Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. They have a dedicated process for handling these types of conflicts. Think of it as like a streamlined system, with specific institutions equipped to resolve these unique online disputes. So it ensures a level playing field in the digital realm.
Right. And then we have chargebacks, something that a lot of us have probably encountered as consumers, like an immediate online court for disputing transactions, particularly on platforms like PayPal.
Yeah. Chargebacks are definitely empowering for consumers. However, we need to think about the perspective of the sellers as well. Is there a way to ensure fairness for both parties involved?
That's a good point. It seems like a recurring theme with ODR is finding that balance between efficiency and fairness.
Absolutely. And as technology continues to shape ODR, maintaining that balance becomes increasingly crucial.
So we've gone through all these various ODR options, but there's this one crucial question. What good is a resolution if you can't enforce it? And this feels particularly relevant. In a rapidly developing legal landscape like India,
You've hit a critical point. While there are mechanisms like chargebacks, judgment funds, and escrow accounts, they might not always be as robust or effective as we need them to be. For ODR to truly succeed, we need to strengthen enforcement mechanisms, ensuring that those resolutions achieved online have real-world consequences.
all right, so we've talked about ODR's global nature, the different types, and the challenges of enforcement. What else should we consider as ODR evolves?
Well, as ODR evolves,
Mm.
especially in like a dynamic environment like India, one of the most crucial aspects to consider is its impact on various sectors,
Right.
including e-commerce, which is growing rapidly in India.
That makes a lot of sense. India's e-commerce market is just booming. And with that comes this surge in online transactions and inevitably disputes. So how is ODR being applied in this specific sector?
Well, we're seeing a rise in the use of ODR platforms
Yeah.
that are designed specifically for resolving e-commerce disputes. These platforms often specialize in handling issues like product quality, delivery problems, payment disagreements, and even intellectual property concerns, all of which are very common in like the digital marketplace.
So it's like a specialized branch of ODR that's tailored to the unique needs of the e-commerce world.
Precisely. Think of it as like a way to address the unique challenges of like buying and selling goods and services online. These platforms often employ a combination of ODR methods, including assisted negotiation, online mediation, and even automated resolution systems for simpler disputes.
It's fascinating. It sounds like a really practical and efficient way to manage the inevitable conflicts that arise in such a fast-paced digital environment.
It is, and it's not just limited to large e-commerce companies. We're also seeing smaller businesses and individual sellers utilizing ODR platforms to resolve disputes quickly and effectively. It really levels the playing field in the digital marketplace.
That brings up another question from the research. We talked about enforcement earlier, but how does that actually play out in these online spaces, particularly in the context of e-commerce?
Yeah, enforcement's a critical piece of the puzzle, as you mentioned. In e-commerce, it often involves mechanisms like holding funds in escrow until a dispute is resolved. This ensures that if a seller doesn't comply with the agreed-upon resolution, the buyer can be reimbursed.
That makes a lot of sense. It provides that level of security and accountability
Yeah.
for both buyers and sellers.
Exactly. And as ODR systems become more sophisticated, we're seeing more creative enforcement mechanisms emerge, such as integrating reputation systems or utilizing smart contracts that automatically execute the terms in a resolution.
That's really innovative. Seems like the possibilities for ODR are constantly expanding.
They are, but we also need to be mindful of the challenges and ensure that as ODR systems become more complex, they remain transparent and accessible to all parties involved.
Transparency and accessibility are definitely key. But let's not forget the human aspect. Technology is an important tool, but we can't overlook the role of human judgment and empathy in resolving disputes effectively.
You're absolutely right. Technology should complement human expertise, not replace it entirely. For instance, in more complex e-commerce disputes, where emotions run high, or the issues are particularly nuanced, the presence of a skilled online mediator can be invaluable.
So it sounds like it's a balancing act, finding the right blend of technology and human intervention to ensure fair and equitable outcomes.
Precisely, and this is especially relevant. When we consider the vast diversity within India, we need to ensure that ODR systems are culturally sensitive and inclusive, taking into account different languages, customs, and social norms.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
So how are these considerations being addressed in the development and implementation of ODR in India?
Well, there's a growing awareness of the need to tailor ODR systems to the Indian context. For example, some platforms are incorporating multilingual support, offering mediation services in various regional languages. Others are working to ensure that their algorithms and decision-making processes are sensitive to cultural nuances.
That's encouraging. It sounds like there's a real effort to make ODR accessible and equitable for everyone.
It is, but there's always room for improvement. As ODR continues to gain traction in India, it's essential that we prioritize inclusivity and ensure that no one is left behind.
So we've talked about the application of ODR in e-commerce, the importance of enforcement, the balance between technology and human judgment, and the need for cultural sensitivity. Now, I'm curious to explore the specific communication technologies being used in these online disputes. It's like peeking behind the curtain to see how the magic happens.
I love that analogy, and it is fascinating to see the range of technologies at play. At its core, ODR relies on secure and reliable communication channels.
So what kind of tools are we talking about here?
We're talking about everything from basic email and video conferencing for those initial interactions and information sharing, to more sophisticated platforms designed specifically for online dispute resolution. These platforms offer features like secure document repositories for evidence sharing, breakout rooms for private caucus sessions between parties and mediators, and even real-time chat functions for quick communication.
So it sounds like these platforms are creating a virtual space that mimics many aspects of traditional face-to-face dispute resolution.
You're exactly right. The goal is to replicate those key elements of interaction and make the process as familiar and comfortable as possible for participants, even in a digital environment.
Right, but with technology.
Yeah.
There's always these considerations for security and reliability. So how do these platforms address those concerns?
That's a critical question. Reputable platforms prioritize data security, utilizing encryption and access controls to safeguard sensitive information. They also conduct rigorous testing to ensure the platform's reliability so participants can trust that their data is protected and the platform will function smoothly during their dispute resolution process.
So it's about building trust in the technology itself, just as we need to build trust in the ODR processes.
Absolutely. Without trust, the entire system falls apart.
We've covered so much ground. It's incredible how dynamic and multifaceted ODR is. It really is. We've gone from like the broad global landscape to the specifics of technology.
Yeah.
And it's clear that ODR is a lot more than just a digital version of traditional dispute resolution.
Exactly. It represents a paradigm shift, a fundamental change in how we approach conflict resolution in the digital age. And it's particularly exciting to see its potential unfold in India.
Okay, so let's talk about that potential. What makes India such fertile ground for ODR to flourish?
Well, India has this unique combination of factors that are kind of working in its favor. It's a rapidly growing digital economy, a young and tech-savvy population, and a legal system that's increasingly open to embracing technology. All of these create like a perfect environment for ODR to take root and grow.
Well, it sounds like all these forces are kind of aligning to propel ODR forward.
Precisely. And let's not forget the sheer volume of disputes that arise in a country as vast and diverse as India. ODR offers a way to address this backlog and make justice more accessible, affordable, and efficient for everyone.
That's a really powerful statement. But we've also talked about the challenges. So what are some of those key hurdles that need to be overcome for ODR to really thrive in the Indian context?
One of the biggest challenges, as we've discussed, is ensuring that ODR systems are accessible to all, regardless of their location, language, or technical expertise. Bridging the digital divide is absolutely crucial.
Right. How do we approach that?
Well, it requires a multi-pronged approach. We need to invest in digital literacy programs, develop ODR platforms that are user-friendly and accessible on low bandwidth devices, and provide support for those who need help navigating the technology.
So it's about meeting people where they are, rather than expecting them to adapt to a technology that might not be readily available or easily understood.
Exactly. Inclusivity is paramount. We can't let technology create a two-tiered system of justice.
Another challenge we've touched upon is building trust. How do we convince people, particularly those who might be unfamiliar with or even skeptical of technology, that ODR is a legitimate and reliable way to resolve disputes?
Trust is built on transparency and accountability. We need clear guidelines and standards for ODR providers, mechanisms for addressing complaints, and robust data protection measures to ensure that people's information is handled responsibly.
So it's about establishing a framework that safeguards people's rights and interests, while simultaneously promoting the use of technology
Absolutely. Striking that balance is crucial.
Yeah.
And it also involves educating the public about how ODR works, its benefits, and the safeguards in place to protect their interests.
It sounds like a really collaborative effort,
Yeah.
involving not just technologists and legal professionals, but also policymakers, educators,
Mhm.
and community leaders.
You're absolutely right. It requires a collective effort to ensure that ODR truly serves the needs of the Indian people.
Now let's shift gears a bit and look towards the future. What are some of the trends and developments in ODR that you're most excited about?
One trend that's particularly fascinating is the integration of artificial intelligence into ODR platforms. We're seeing AI being used to analyze documents, identify key issues in a dispute, and even suggest potential solutions.
So like having a virtual legal assistant, helping to streamline the whole process.
In a way, yes. But it's important to remember that AI should augment human decision-making, not replace it.
There's that balance again. It seems like finding the right balance is a recurring theme in ODR.
It is. Another exciting development is the growing focus on cross-border ODR. As global trade and e-commerce continue to expand, we need mechanisms for resolving disputes that transcend national boundaries.
It sounds like ODR has the potential to become a truly global system of justice, connecting people and resolving conflicts regardless of location.
That's the vision. And achieving it requires international cooperation, harmonization of standards, and a commitment to building a fair and equitable system that works for everyone.
That's an ambitious goal, but one that's definitely worth striving for.
Absolutely. ODR is about harnessing the power of technology to create a more just and peaceful world. It's about empowering people to resolve their conflicts effectively and efficiently, and fostering understanding and cooperation across borders.
Well said. It's been incredible exploring the world of ODR with you. We've covered so much, from the basics to the big picture trends.
It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you. And our listener,
And to our listener, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into ODR. We hope you've gained some valuable insights into this field, which is so dynamic and rapidly evolving.
if you'd like to delve a little deeper into this topic, be sure to check out the resources we've linked in the show notes.
And remember to subscribe to LexTalks for more deep dives into fascinating legal landscapes.
Thank you for joining LexTalks. Subscribe for more updates.